I'm going to go ahead and start real quick and let everybody know who I am and who's here with me. And just to give you a quick, in about 2 minutes, idea of what we're trying to accomplish today and maybe again in the future. I'm Joseph Owens. I'm primarily a military attorney, but when this whole pandemic thing started, I'm sitting in my office and I'm wondering A, how I'm going to keep my business going. B, I'm working with colleagues that I can't see anymore. C, I'm going crazy because I can't go to the gym, I can't do anything else, and I also am dealing with things I've never dealt with before. So I was concerned about getting myself in trouble, and so I saw lots of questions. I saw lots of questions over the list asking some of the same things, and I was able to think to myself, well, what should we do? We should get a group of people together that know this stuff up and down for the areas that I was concerned with, and then also maybe have a round table at the end and see what we could do at the end. So I was able to get approximately a dozen people involved, but five are going to be speaking today. Glenn and Matt, we know him for the crab feast, but we also know he's a guru in business law. Glenn and Matt will be talking about some of the business things that will be going on. Bill will be talking about some of the uh, Erwin will be talking about some of the ethical things that are happening. Valerie's here also talking about some of the areas of dealing with remote partners and remote colleagues, because it's something that she's dealt with quite a bit and it's new to some of us. And we'll also have Lisa talking to us about not going stir crazy as we're working remotely and give us some ideas. What I'm going to ask of you is, because we have 120 people, which is really neat, but I don't want 120 questions interrupting presentations. So there's a little click on the side that you can actually ask a question. And if you ask a question, if we're getting a whole bunch of the same questions, we may interject and ask the instructor about that question then. But if not, we'll hold the questions all to the round table, which will be at the end. We'll be doing this for about an hour to an hour and a half. And when we finish, we'll also have a really neat thing here is we got a registered nurse and who is also an attorney that will be able to talk to some of the stuff that's going on with Corona. And I've also saw a bunch of questions on the listserv today about how to deal with being able to go to your office because you're not subject to the stay-at-home order. And so we have some advice for you as far as that's concerned too, and that will come when we do our roundtable at the end. So before I pretend I'm a lawyer and talk forever, I'm just going to stop talking and pass it over to Glenn. And I probably
that's okay. I think I'm going to. This is Matt. I'm going to jump in first and tackle a couple topics, and then Glenn's going to finish up with the really good one where you can get access to a bunch of money from the government, and so he'll be talking about the really fun stuff. The couple things I wanted to cover were the new paid sick leave and expanded FMLA requirements. This was one of the first pieces of legislation that was passed in response. It was called the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. It really expanded two primary portions, as I just mentioned. It was emergency paid sick leave and expanded FMLA coverage. The paid sick leave has a duration of 10 days, up to 10 days, and the expanded FMLA is 10 weeks. They provide 6 statutory reasons to take this leave. Importantly, and what it's going to apply to a lot of people, especially I'm actually coming to you from Worcester County, Maryland, where there's only a handful or so of cases. So being personally impacted by this disease in terms of having to care for somebody really isn't an issue, but more importantly down here, it has to do with being home and taking care of your children because schools are closed. And that is one of the requirements, or one of the allowable reasons to take paid sick leave, is to care for a minor child whose school is closed. Interestingly, it does not apply to caring for a child if the child is disabled. It does specifically call out the minor child. So that is a little bit of an interesting little nugget there. But I can
see you looking at your.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, this is a new thing for me. I'm not a webcast kind of guy, but it does allow you to take the leave to if you are ordered to quarantine or be isolated, if you're advised by a healthcare provider to be self-quarantined, or if you're experiencing the symptoms and you're pursuing a medical diagnosis. Now, we were presented with an interesting question earlier today about whether somebody, if they just decided on their own to self-quarantine, they had a cough and shortness of breath, and they decide on their own to self-quarantine, are they able to take this paid sick leave? And I believe the answer is no for the time being, because you have to have those symptoms and pursue a medical diagnosis. So it does require a medical diagnosis, which is a bit of a challenge these days given the testing limitations, but that doesn't prevent you going from a doctor, having them diagnose you and say, all right, you're now ordered to self-quarantine. So although you might not specifically be tested and test positive for the disease, you can still be ordered to self-quarantine as a result of seeing a doctor, but you can't just do it on your own. You can't self-diagnose, which was something that we were confronted with, and that goes hand in glove with the unemployment insurance as well. The pay rate for this is split into two different chunks. You get full pay if you are ordered to quarantine or you're self-quarantining at the direction of a doctor. You'll get full pay during this time off. If you're caring for somebody or if you're taking care of a minor child, you're entitled to 2/3 of your standard pay, and there are caps on that. I think it's $513 a day, I think is the cap for that. What's really important for the employers is that it's 100% reimbursed. All of these benefits are 100% reimbursed from the government, and generally it's done through your payroll tax, your withholding of payroll tax. So you actually have the cash right there to be able to pay out these benefits. The current guidance on if there's not enough in payroll tax to cover these expenses is that the IRS will send you a check promptly, which is kind of a, I don't know how much faith I have in that, but they do say that they're going to reimburse that. Two kind of things to point out about this. One, like everything with the federal government, when they have a new program, there is a posting requirement. So these are both available on the Department of Labor website, and these are required to be posted in a conspicuous place along with all of the other postings that you have. So I think that's an important piece. And the other part is that this is not going to apply to any of the businesses that are forced to be closed. So a lot of the retail shops and other businesses, they're not going to be able to take advantage of any of these leave requirements. So those are kind of two larger pieces to remember about that. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the expansion of unemployment benefits. And this is really, and this is going to go a little bit with what Glenn is going to talk about in the PPP programs, the payroll protection program, where you can get a loan from the SBA. But unemployment was expanded in three respects. One, which is a big one, it expanded who's eligible for unemployment benefits, and it rolled in self-employed, independent contractors, gig workers. If you don't have sufficient work history, those people are now eligible to apply for unemployment, which is huge and important for a lot of people. Unfortunately, if you look on the Maryland unemployment insurance website, it currently says we have no way to process these applications. Enter your email address and we'll tell you when we can. So I'm sure they're working at a fever pitch to try to get that done. So that was the first expansion of unemployment insurance. The second expansion was the additional $600, which in some instances is actually resulting in higher pay for some workers. They actually are going to take home more money if they were working at that minimum wage level. And then the third expansion of unemployment insurance was the duration. They added 13 additional weeks to unemployment insurance. So that's a big expansion of that program, and is going to hopefully help out a lot of people. I'm going to pass it over to Glenn, and just keep in mind when Glenn's going to be talking, he's going to be talking about the payroll protection plans and some other loan programs. And the goal of those loan programs is to keep people employed, whereas obviously the unemployment benefits are to, take care of people that are laid off. So there's a trade-off sometimes between whether you want to look at the loan program versus whether you want to look at the loan program. So Glenn, you want to take over?
Glenn, if your microphone's muted, you're going to need to unmute it for us.
Can you guys hear me okay now?
Yep, we've got you now.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So let me back up then, and there's 3 programs that Maryland has come out with to provide assistance to small businesses and to employers. The first program is the Department of Labor Layoff Aversion Program. There's about $9 million available for small businesses to buy equipment and to help facilitate their workers to work from home. We just got word yesterday that $9 million fund is tapped, so that program's no longer available. There are 2 Department of Commerce programs that are still available, however. The first is a $10,000 grant program. You can apply, and there's $50 million in that fund, so that's 5,000 grants. They've been fielding a lot of these applications, so I would highly recommend to apply for this as soon as possible. But basically, to be eligible for the program, you have to articulate how the current crisis is affecting your business. They require you to provide 2 months of back financial statements, as well as a pro forma of the next 6 months. So what does your current financial situation look like in the next 6 months? So that's the grant program. That's $10,000. You don't have to pay it back. The other program is a up to $50,000 loan program, also from the Department of Labor, from the Department of Commerce. There's $75 million available in that fund. No payments for the first 12 months. Then it converts to a 36-month term loan at an interest rate of 2%. So again, the funds are limited. Apply to the Maryland programs as soon as possible. So here's the big one, and this is, probably the largest infusion of capital into small businesses that has ever occurred. It's the Federal Payroll Protection Program. And you have to be eligible for this program, you have to make a good faith certification of the following things: that the current uncertainty makes the loan necessary to support ongoing operations, and the funds will be used to retain workers and maintain payroll or make mortgage payments, lease payments, and utility payments. So what this loan program allows, it through the SBA, is small businesses can apply and they can receive up to a loan for up to 2.5 2.5 months of payroll expenses. Then once the loan is granted, if they retain their employees and they use those expenses for payroll, for making mortgage payments and rent obligations, those expenses are then forgiven off of the loan balance. So any payroll paid for that 8-week period, any rent payments, that's all forgiven off of the loan balance. The remaining funds, if any, a lot of businesses that utilize this will be able to get complete forgiveness, but the remaining funds, if any, get to be paid back at a 4% interest rate for 10 years. And then finally, if people don't want to apply to the SBA loan program, the PPP program, they can actually get some tax incentives. One of which is they can defer the payment of the employer share of their FICA tax. So they don't have to pay FICA for the entire duration of 2020, but they have to repay it in equal installments, 50% paid December 31, 2021, 50% December 31, 2022. In addition to that, there's also a credit available on quarterly tax returns. It's a credit for the $10,000 of wages paid to each employee. So what it is it's a 50% credit on really the next $10,000 of wages that you pay to any employee. So it effectively, if you paid your employees $10,000 or more, it works out to a $5,000 credit per employee that you keep on. So again, if you apply to the PPP program, you can't get these tax incentives, and vice versa is true. If you get the tax incentives, you can't apply to the program. Other things just relevant to solo practitioners, the tax return deadline has been extended through July 15th, and then all quarterly estimated payments have also been extended through July 15th, as well as any tax due in 2019. So that's a summary of the loan programs and tax programs that are currently out there and currently available.
There were some questions typed in the chat. Are we saving those for the end?
Hi, this is Andrea. I think we have 7 questions that came in, and we did discuss waiting until the very end. So unless faculty has a strong preference, we'll hold those questions until the very end of the presentation. So if we've got Valerie in the presentation. Valerie, do you want to step in and discuss working with remote staff and remote technology?
And for those of you who
Yes.
sorry, Valerie, this is Bill. Just 1 second. For those who have logged in who aren't presenting, please turn off your cameras and mics for us. We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey,
Sorry.
Bill, can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay, Bill, the one question that we got a couple of, I think you can do yes or no, I think we can address them now, is does the unemployment apply to new hires? And what about contractors or of counsel?
Was that the unemployment or the count towards the payroll? The new hires. I can't hear you.
Your mic's muted, Joseph. It's still muted, Joe.
Hey, Glenn, I think the question is related to the what counts towards payroll for the forgiveness portion of the triple P loan, and what contractors and other people. I think that's the thrust of the question.
Okay. So can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So the portion that's forgivable, it does, so the purpose of the statute is to keep employees employed, and it doesn't have to be the same employees. It could be new employees. You have to, they look at a measuring period basically for the last 12 months, and they look at a measuring period going forward. And if you maintain a similar level of payroll, then they will allow forgiveness of that payroll expense. Currently, it's what's a little unclear right now. So certainly W-2 employees, that qualifies. Utilities qualify. Rent qualifies. Mortgage interest qualifies. But what's a gray area, and where we're waiting for Treasury to put out their interpretive guidance, is contractor payments. If you have independent contractors, that may also qualify. During that 8-week period, those payments may also qualify towards what is forgiven off of the balance of the triple P loan.
I think that answers those questions. If we can now go to Valerie. Thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for asking me to participate in this webinar. I'm looking forward to hopefully providing some valuable information to everyone about how to work remotely and to facilitate productivity while working remotely, as well as managing your staff. We'll start off with a very short list of pros and cons, and starting with the pros. I want to be positive. So the pros to working remotely are increased productivity, no interruption in conducting business with your clients, being able to access your documents and obtaining information related to your case files from anywhere. There's no travel cost or commuting issues with regard to your employees, with the caveat that your employees are also working remotely, not if they're based in your office. And it also provides for flexible employee hours. I'm going to expand a little bit on those specific points a little bit. Increased productivity. I think it goes without saying that if you give someone the opportunity to work in a comfortable environment where they can actually start their day at 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m., whatever time your office opens, as opposed to maybe having to start at 6 or 6:30 and factor in commuting time, they're going to start their day on a more relaxed note. They're going to be able to accomplish all those personal things that they have to do in the morning with their family, so that they can then focus solely on starting their day with your office. It also allows for no interruption with your clients to be able to provide services to them efficiently. There's also a cost factor involved, and I'll touch on that a little bit in my next topic, but certainly you have the ability of saving your client money by not having to expand your office footprint to accommodate a large staff and to accommodate other necessary points of running your business. There is a savings also involved in travel costs for your employees. I don't know if anyone subsidizes subway or metro fares for your employees, or provides some kind of incentive to them for commuting into the office. But certainly if they're not doing that, obviously it saves you that cost as well. And also in the same vein of being able to provide benefits to your employees, offering them flexible employee hours, again, using that scenario of they have personal family commitments that maybe, they can't get to work until 9 o'clock or 9:30 if they're traveling to your brick and mortar office. Maybe you might be able to offset their hours a little bit to offer some flexibility in their schedule, so that, again, they come into work in a relaxed environment. They're ready to focus on what needs to be done for your office. Of course, there are cons, and there's always cons. So I would be remiss if I didn't discuss them as well. So one of the cons obviously would be security risks. I have not, in all my years of doing this, and I've been in business for over 10 years doing this, litigation support services for attorneys. I've been in the legal field for over 30 years. I don't know that there is a foolproof way to eliminate all risks associated with not only working in your actual office, but also working remotely. There are many ways that you can set up a shared work environment that has the necessary security protocols to prevent outside attacks. But there's really no way, and I am always open to suggestions and information as far as improving methods. If anyone has found a way that they can secure the information that's shared amongst your employees and yourself, even in a remote environment, I'm more than happy to listen to your information. But getting back to the topic at hand. So one of the ways that you can almost guarantee that security is not an issue is by providing the employees with company laptops. Laptops these days are not necessarily very expensive. I know that they can be, but I'll offer you this. The majority of what people use in cloud computing is just that. It's cloud computing. In other words, you don't need the memory capacities like you used to when you had all of your programs that were desktop based or laptop based. 95% of the programs out there these days that are operating in the cloud environment are actually residing on the cloud and not on your actual equipment. So therefore, the expanded memory is not really necessary anymore. You can get by with a decent amount of hard drive space to hold those documents you don't want to put in the cloud. But also you have, you can vary the amount of RAM, random access memory, that you need. Sometimes it's 8 gigs, sometimes it's 16 gigs. I'll leave the specifics to IT professionals, but point being, you can get by with less these days. If you have someone who's working remotely and you want to ensure that your information is protected from your office to their home and back again, offer to give the employee a company laptop with the admonition that there is nothing that is to be prepared on that laptop, and there is to be no external internet access to any unapproved websites. No Facebooking, no Instagram, no Snapchat, none of this. No social media, period. No Twitter. I mean, you can put those protocols in place to prevent people from going there. Those kind of things, again, an IT professional would be able to guide you on that. But those kind of walls are available to be put on company equipment to prevent that sort of thing. The other con to having people work from home is, of course, time management. And I think that applies to practically everyone here. It's not just to employees. I think everyone in this room could shake their head and say, yes, there's times where I have to turn my email program off, or there's times where I cannot answer phone calls for a block period of time during the day because I'm trying to get a discovery project done, or whatever the case may be. It is difficult to provide the same level of supervision to your employees on a remote basis to make sure that they're managing their time correctly. The only way that you can really have any oversight on that is to set goals for the day in terms of what you expect them to do and accomplish in productivity. So in other words, if you have 6 cases, 3 of them require outgoing discovery, 3 of them require getting out letters to medical providers because they're personal injury cases, whatever that case may be. If you delegate specific tasks to your staff and you project that they should be able to complete them in a reasonable amount of time or just in the course of a day, then those goals should be met. If they cannot or are not met, then that's a conversation you need to have with your employee. That's a red flag that the person is not managing their time appropriately. All that being said, I know many of you know that I am a huge proponent of working remotely. I mean, after all, that's what my business model is based on. There can be tremendous advantages to it. And I actually feel personally that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. First of all, it's cost effective. And I'm not necessarily referring to my business model using remote paralegals, but just generally. It saves the employee money. They don't have a commuting expense. So therefore, eating a lunch out, having to pay for gas, having to pay for tolls or parking, maintenance on their car, mileage on their car, all of those things are what employees take into consideration when they're contemplating accepting an offer of employment from a law firm. If your situation is such that maybe you can't offer that person whatever the prevailing rate is, I'm not even going to speculate on what that is because I know it varies by circumstances. To offer that person the ability to work remotely is probably the best benefit that anyone could have. I mean, I think it probably even goes above health insurance in some situations. Just being able to offer them the flexibility of working from home, not only during times of crisis that what we're in right now, but also during inclement weather situations, or their child is ill and they need to stay home with them on any given day. Again, you increase productivity by giving them the tools, i.e. the company laptop, to be able to continue to produce for your law firm, even if they can't make it physically into your office. Now, I want to briefly discuss, I don't know how much time I have, so if someone could give me a heads up, I certainly don't want to overrun my time length.
I think you had 15 minutes, so it should be around 2:35. So got a few more minutes. We were a little over on the last one.
Okay. Thank you. So I want to devote the remainder amount of my time to explaining briefly the different opportunities you have to work the program.
Your mic got muted, Valerie.
Not sure how I got muted. Okay.
We can hear you now.
Awesome. Thank you. So quickly, people are sometimes intimidated when you start to talk about cloud computing and working in the cloud and all those familiar phrases. And with the onslaught of cloud-based practice management systems, and we all know what they are, Rocket Matter and Clio and MyCase and so on and so forth. Certainly, those are wonderful products, and you get a tremendous amount of support with them. But they're not always a good fit for solo practitioners. And what I come across when people consult with me about, gosh, I signed up for Clio and yeah, it's great, but my word, it's so huge, and then I'm only using it to send emails back and forth to my clients, or I'm only using it to put documents in there or billing posting my billing. And I have always said consistently 24/7, if you sign on to a practice management system and you're not using it to its fullest potential, you're wasting your money. And not every solo practitioner needs that full, robust system, at least not in the beginning. You can certainly get by with starting under Office 365. And trust me, I am not a reseller for 365. I just really believe in the product because it brings so many opportunities under one umbrella for productivity. You not only do you get all of the Office products, but you also get the benefit of Microsoft's storage facilities. And then there are apps, one of which my clients have really enjoyed signing on, and that's the Teams platform. Teams allows you to collaborate with your clients and utilizing many different types of communication with them. You can email, you can schedule conferences. They have business level Skype built in to their chat feature. So in case you don't want to do a chat, which by the way, if you use the chat portal, it gives you a transcript of your conversation, so you can keep that in your file for reference. But you can also simply click on the phone icon and have a phone call through your computer. It does not require an outside or external phone line. It happens all online. And it is a perfect platform for people who just want to kind of dip their toe into working in the cloud, but not necessarily go head first. It offers 1 terabyte of storage where you can take all of your files and put them in the cloud. For 1 license, which, by the way, the full package of Office 365 costs you a whopping $12.50 a month. 1 license allows you to download this platform onto 5 different devices. So you can download it on your laptop, on your iPad or tablet. You can download it onto your phone. You can download it onto your desktop, and you still have one place available under the 5 source license. So sometimes,
Valerie, I think we need to start moving on to our next speaker shortly. Do you have any closing thoughts, maybe?
yes, I was just going to wrap up and say sometimes less is more. Don't get intimidated by trying to take on too much. Just start simple, and then you can build up from there. And I will conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Can everyone hear me okay?
Valerie, before you conclude and we'll go to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Kramer, but we will get back to you because I think we're going to have some questions for you at the end.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
We can hear you.
All right, great. And hopefully you can also see the presentation. All right. Very good. Well, I got to tell you, this social distancing has really taken a toll on me. If you're wondering why you can't see me, it's that, frankly, I like to look my best when I'm presenting, and this whole situation has caused me to kind of let myself go. I mean, probably like you, I've not seen a barber in a while. In fact, this is what I look like today. It's just not a pretty picture, but I do want to talk with you about ethics. A lot of people think I'm a legal ethics lawyer, but in reality, I specialize in distraction, desperation, and chaos. At the root of most grievances that I handle, there are usually crises in people's lives that cause us to lose focus. And the more chaos you have, the more mistakes you're going to have, and the more grievances you're going to have. We've seen a lot of charts on the progression of COVID-19. And I'm not going to show you a chart on that, but here's my forecast And if you'd please mute your microphone if it's still on. Here is my forecast of grievances relating to this crisis. I think it's easy to see why these things are probably going to increase because all of us are in crisis right now. We're dealing with a very disruptive situation. We're talking right today about how we have to reconfigure our entire practice, how we have to do things a bit differently. I think we're all at risk, and all of us have a greater chance of receiving a grievance than we do of catching the virus. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and sometimes that desperation causes us to cross the line. It's easy to fall prey to what I call the 5 misses. Miscommunication, missed deadlines, missing documentation, missing signatures, and misappropriation. The world may be shutting down, but our professional obligations remain. Are you getting your mail? Are you maintaining client contact? Can clients contact you now as easily as they could before this crisis? If they can't get you, they might want to get a hold of the Attorney Grievance Commission. We don't want miscommunication to get in our way of serving the client and cause problems down the line. Missed deadlines. COVID-19 is not a defense, but blowing the statute of limitations is. Most deadlines remain. Courts may be closed, but through electronic filing, most are very much open for business, and the 2 jurisdictions, Baltimore City and Prince George's County, that don't yet have electronic filing have drop boxes. And the judiciary has mentioned that to us time and time again. Don't count on deadlines being extended, meet them. Missing documentation. When I'm in front of my workstation at the office, I'll make a phone call and I'll be jotting down notes and I'll write confirmatory emails and the like. But when I'm on my cell phone at home or out and about, I might let that documentation slide. Don't do it. It's very important, vitally important, that you not miss the CYA steps that hopefully protect your practice in good times. It's certainly going to be necessary in times like these. Missing signatures. Your client has just been laid off due to this crisis and needs money desperately. In fact, the client's calling you every other day as to whether that settlement check has come in, and it has come in. It's made payable to you and to your client. Unfortunately, you don't have a power of attorney allowing you to endorse your client's name on the check. Well, you know, you're only going to run it through escrow anyway, and this is going to expedite your ability to get the money to the client, to disperse the funds from the proceeds of settlement. So why not just sign the client's name and deposit the check? No harm, no foul. The problem is that a forged endorsement doesn't look very good on your resume, and it won't look very good to bar counsel. So if you don't have the right authorization to sign your client's name, don't do it. Just because you're their lawyer does not give you the right to sign their name. If you have to get a power of attorney, even though the Court of Appeals sometimes questioned that practice in general, there are now some remote notarization procedures in place, but make sure that that power of attorney has a couple of witnesses and the like, and you've got to follow that. But if you can't, then maybe you have to figure out a way to get that client's signature, but don't just shortchange things and cut corners and provide that missing signature. That can get you into trouble. Of course, the easiest way to get into trouble is misappropriation. I've got expenses. I've got payroll to meet, but I haven't gotten paid by many clients who are undergoing the stress and pressure of this crisis. So I'm going to avoid layoffs by borrowing from my trust. I've got $10,000 sitting there. I only need a few thousand, and I'll pay it back when I get paid. And maybe I do, but if my account ever gets audited, and sometimes that will happen, I'm done. I'm done being a lawyer. I'm getting disbarred. I can't borrow from that escrow account. And if I do, well, I'm going to pay the price for it. So don't simply borrow for this rainy day with the idea that you'll give it all back when you get paid. Even if you do, you're going to get disbarred. And while we're on the topic of payment, what's in your wallet? Social distancing requires long distance payment options. Credit cards are a viable option if you use them correctly, but they do have their limitations. And for that, we need to distinguish between a payment for services rendered and payments for future work. If I bill my client $1,000 for work that I've already performed, I've earned that money. If the client pays by credit card, those funds, that $1,000 will go into my operating account. Now, usually the credit card company is going to charge 2 or 3% fee. Let's say it's a 3% processing fee. So what they'll do is they'll put $1,000 into my operating account, which I've earned, so it does go into operating, and they'll take $30 as their fee for providing the service and the convenience of credit card payments. And that's perfectly fine. But contrast that with a $1,000 retainer, where I want the client to pay $1,000 toward future work. That $1,000 can only go into one place and comply with the rules, and that's my IALTA account. Now, if that regular credit card is charged and puts $1,000 into my escrow account, that part's fine. The problem is the 3% processing fee. That credit card company is going to debit my escrow account $30 for processing. In essence, I'm charging my client for my business expense. I'm not allowed to do that. That's unethical. There is an exception, and these are the IALTA compliant credit card processing companies. You know them as LawPay, LexCharge, LawCharge, services of that kind. What they'll do is they'll take that $1,000 retainer, they'll put that into your trust account, but they'll take the $30 fee out of your operating account. That is IALTA compliant, and that is perfectly fine. The problem with these types of processors is that they're very expensive. If you don't take a lot of plastic in your practice, then you might not find it cost effective because there's a startup fee and there are monthly charges whether you use it or not. And so a lot of lawyers like to cut through all that and use PayPal instead. PayPal and other payment apps can work great if you're paying for services already rendered. When a client pays a $1,000 bill for services I've already performed, money I've already earned, the $1,000, actually less PayPal's processing fee, will go into my PayPal account. And that's perfectly fine. I'm allowed to do that because the PayPal account is my money, and that's fine. But this is not your friend. This is not your pal when it comes to taking retainers. If the client is paying a $1,000 retainer, maybe PayPal puts $970 into my PayPal account. Beyond the fact that my client isn't getting credit for the full amount of the $1,000 retainer and is paying some of my cost of doing business, you have to remember, it's not going directly into my trust account. It's going into my, quote, PayPal account. That's my money. That's the same account that I get credited when I'm billing somebody for past work and getting fees I've already earned. So remember, the PayPal account can't be used as a way station and then use that to transfer into trust. I've had clients who've made that mistake. They think, well, I'm just going to transfer it and I'll eat the $30 fee, so I'll put an extra $30 into trust from me to make sure the client's balance is fine. You would say, well, gosh, there's no harm done there. The problem is it doesn't comply with the rules. And when it comes to IALTA rules and compliance, trust me, this is a situation you do not want to mess with. because Bar Counsel's not going to mess around if you're caught misusing your trust account. This isn't the kind of thing in that situation that I've just illustrated that probably won't get you disbarred, but it's why take a chance on a disciplinary infraction and a sanction of some kind? There would be no reason to do that. This is quite a crisis we're all dealing with, and gosh, I know, like all of you, I certainly hope it's over and over soon and as painlessly as possible. But every crisis does present us with opportunities. On Wall Street, the savvy investor would say it's a great time to buy. And I think that certainly is true in our practices. We have an unprecedented opportunity to invest in our practices. This is time to call our clients, see how they're doing. They'll probably appreciate the call, and they'll appreciate the security of knowing that their lawyer is out there working for them. It's a great time to help each other. If you see a colleague that is having difficulty coping, lend a helping hand. That's what we're all here for. It's a great time to focus on marketing. You know, if business is slowing down for us, we have a great opportunity to use that time in directions that perhaps we haven't given enough attention to before. Marketing is one of them. Social media is another. It's a great time to expand our social media presence. And for me, a particularly important way to combat the isolation of all of the social distancing that we're dealing with. Reconcile the trust account. Is your trust account reconciled? Do you do that every month? I would venture to say that most attorneys do not, despite the fact that we are legally required to reconcile our IALTA account every single month. Very few, in my experience, and of course I see a lot of the pathologies out there, are doing that. This is the time to catch up, to set your IALTA account correctly. If you don't know how to reconcile your trust account, and candidly, most of us don't, just go on to attorneygrievances.com and you will find a tutorial under the Law Library menu on how to manage your IALTA account. That would be very helpful. It's also a good time to implement technology. If your idea of technology is simply to do word processing and email, well, you're neglecting accounting programs that can be very helpful. The case management software that's out there that Valerie alluded to, very good time to start implementing these things so that when you're ready to roll again, when this crisis lifts, you'll emerge much stronger. Of course, it's also very important that we take care of our health and our balance. And that's something that many of us as attorneys, we often neglect. And that is something that I think Lisa Kaplan from our Lawyer Assistance Program can address. In addition to combating isolation, you have here my contact information. Don't be afraid to use it. If I can be of assistance, I'm happy to do so, and very pleased to be with you all today.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Bill, can we put up the PowerPoint, please? This next section is for you to be able to take care of yourself and to take a few minutes to talk about isolation. But what I'd like everyone to do, 181 of us who are on here today, is I'd like you to just pause for a second and just take a deep breath. One thing about breathing is that as long as you're alive, you can breathe. And breathing is a great way to ground yourself when you're feeling like things are out of control. These are really uncertain times. We feel nervous and we feel isolated. And breathing is always a way to bring yourself back to managing how you feel. So next slide, please, Bill. I'd like to take a holistic approach to this. We're going to talk about tips on how to feel connected. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you're going to have a really hard time with feeling connected. They all go together, and so at the end, I'm going to talk about some self-care. Anxiety, first of all, is very, very common in a situation like this. This situation is not common at all. This is something we have never experienced before. But if you feel that your anxiety is a little bit higher than normal, that's because your body is programmed, basically fight or flight, to be able to manage the situation. So how do you know if you've gone to the other side? Listen to your body, look at how you're performing at work and with your friends. And if you feel that the anxiety is out of hand, is to reach out, call a counselor, reach out to friends and family, call me, and we can talk about that. One of the things that can help you feel really grounded and connected is to connect it to yourself as well as connected to other people, is come up with a schedule. With intent, look at having a schedule where you put work, social, hobbies, and self-care into that. When we write down a schedule, then we're able to manage our life a little bit better. Pick 2 people that maybe you want to connect with that day. Maybe 2 people that you used to share office space with, or people you used to pass when you went to court. But pick 2 people that you want to connect with, and with intent, reach out to them and connect with them. Think out of the box on how to connect with others virtually. If it's possible, use video in order to have meetings, because when you can see somebody, you can connect with them a whole lot easier than if you're not looking at somebody. Have virtual lunches. Schedule lunch with somebody. And with video, there are a lot of different platforms you can use. You can have lunch with someone. You can go on virtual walks, whether you're doing it with a friend or somebody that you've worked with. But connect with people in different ways like this. Group support, as far as not necessarily work, but connect with your friends, connect with your family. Again, if you can use video, do that. Set up conference calls. I just did that with high school friends. It was great to connect with other people around the country to see how everybody is managing this. Have a virtual happy hour with or without alcohol, and you can connect with people, again, if you can do it through video, but think out of the box. And I would love to hear in the comments later how people are connecting with people. Bill, next slide, please. Join me on Wednesdays from 2 to 3. I started a support group. It just started last week. We're going to run for another 5 weeks. We may extend it. It's a way to connect. It's a safe place to talk about how you're feeling. It's an open discussion format, so we can talk about whatever anybody would like to talk about, and it's a great way to get support. And self-care is vital. It is really, really important to take care of yourself. You are not going to be able to handle the feelings that you're having if you're not taking care of yourself. Next slide, please. Couple things with self-care, especially during this time, is avoid information overload. You will have information about the COVID-19 from everywhere, from your phone, from TV, from people. You need to turn it off. I would schedule time for you to catch up on what's going on in the news and then turn it off. How do you know if you've had too much overload? Well, listen to your body. If you notice that your heart is racing, you're getting nervous, having a hard time sleeping, then I would say it's important to really turn it off at that time. Another thing is, during times like this, we tend to be very judgmental of ourselves. So speak kindly to yourself. You're going to talk to yourself more than you talk to anyone else, and you need to speak kindly to yourself in the way that you would talk to your friends. So if you're talking to yourself in a way and you catch yourself being very critical, I want you to take a step back and say, how would I talk to a friend about this? A lot of what you're dealing with your practices is new. A lot of people are not used to the technology and all the other different things that you have to manage. Take a step back, put the energy into what you need to be focusing on, and really look at the way you're talking to yourself in that. Obviously, avoid solving problems with addictive behaviors. And I'm not just talking about alcohol and drugs. Shopping. People are sitting at home. People have talked to me about shopping getting out of control. Basically, there are behaviors that we use to medicate ourselves when we're feeling uncomfortable. And be really aware of that. And again, reach out if you feel that that's an issue. Look at what you can control. I like to look at the positive side. Everything, what we're dealing with is very, very scary and it's very unsettling, but look at what you do have control over. You can set a schedule for yourself. As Erwin said, you can look at technology. You can look at marketing. There are things you can take control of. You can look at doing that project in your house that you haven't been able to do. So take control of what you can. It will help you to feel grounded, and come up with a list of what you want to accomplish. Quieting your mind and your body during this time is very, very important. So mindfulness is something that I know a lot of people don't like that word, but mindfulness is basically paying attention to what's going on at the moment. And if we're in the past, we tend to be feeling depressed. If we're in the future, especially now, we tend to be very, very anxious. So try to gently bring yourself back to what is going on at the moment. And if you are feeling isolated, bring yourself back to, okay, what can I control and what can I do to feel less isolated in this situation? Stay in the moment as much as you can. Try to spend time outdoors. It's very grounding to get outdoors and to be around nature, and it is springtime, so try to get outdoors. Any kind of physical activity. I know that when working at home, we tend to sit a lot. We lose track of time. Set a timer. I have a coworker who jumps on her treadmill in the afternoon for 10 minutes. I will set a timer and I'll go walk up and down my stairs 5 times. So set times for you to get up and get moving a little bit and get connected with yourself. Surround yourself virtually with positive people. I'm not talking about people who are having a hard time and trying to move forward in a healthy way, but we all know the people in our lives who tend to not necessarily move forward in a healthy way. Really, with intent, think of who those people may be, and in order to feel more connected to healthy people, try to find the healthy people in your life so that you can stay connected and move forward in a healthy way. And reach out for professional assistance, whether it's counseling. All of it's being done virtually. It may take a little bit of time for somebody to get back to you. You can reach out to me. I will get back to you very quickly. Next slide, please, Bill. Mindfulness is not this. It's not about no thoughts, no thoughts, no thoughts. It's about allowing your thoughts to come in and out without connecting with them every single time and having a conversation in your head. It's recognizing anxiety without necessarily saying, I'm feeling anxious. And I know that's hard to do. And if you've never done mindfulness, I'm happy to walk you through some simple techniques. If you want to give me a call, we can walk through that. But it's not trying to shut down the thoughts. It's trying to allow them to come and go. Next slide, please, Bill. I don't want you to forget about the Lawyer Assistance Program. It's available to all lawyers. We have a network of counselors all over. Even though things are virtual now, you may want to meet with somebody at some point. If you're in Southern Maryland, you can talk with someone virtually there, and then when we're able to meet in person, we can have you meet with that person in person. It's free, it's confidential, it's a counseling program. If you are ever concerned about another attorney, please reach out to us. We need your eyes and ears out there. People are going to be struggling. It will not get them in trouble. What I have found is what Erwin had said, is that when people are stressed, they make mistakes. So if you reach out to us and say, I'm really concerned about this person, I've seen a change in behavior, I can't reach them, I'm concerned, we will reach out to them. It will not go any further. They will never know that you called us, but it's very important to let us know, and we can hopefully help them. We also have financial assistance that can help pay for mental health and substance abuse, whether it's weekly counseling or it's inpatient treatment. That's available to help people. Next slide, please. If you find yourself, you can look at this self-assessment, and if you can check any of these, anxious or having trouble sleeping, unable to relax, having problems getting your work completed, noticing an increase in errors of judgment, lost interest in things you used to enjoy, experiencing emotional numbness, having suicidal thoughts. I'm reading this in case anybody for some reason cannot see this. Please give me a call and please reach out and we'll get you the assistance we need. You're very busy. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have a lot of resources, and sometimes a phone call is all you need. Next slide, please, Bill. That's information on the support group. If you go to the MSBA COVID page, there's information on there. There's also information on the health and wellness page. We are doing this by phone. I tried with video and they weren't able to hear me, so we just switched over to phone. Next slide, please. That's my contact information. Please reach out. The easiest way probably to reach me is email, but I'm happy for you to make a phone call also, and I will get back with you as soon as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is Joe Owens again, and we're going to switch over to the round table. And before we start on the round table, there's 2 questions that I got that were via email a lot, and I'm going to address those. The one question is, since we're able to go to work and we're considered an essential employee, if somebody were to stop us, how do we verify that we are an essential employee? I talked to the Howard County Police Department today and asked them that very question and asked them what would work, and the solution that we came up with is carry your bar card. I was also told that if you say that you're a lawyer and you're going to the office, that should be enough, but we all know that there might be 1 or 2 officers that just don't take us at our word and might go a little bit crazy on us. to carry your bar card. That should be a solution to solve that problem. The next thing I wanted to address, and I want to move back to Valerie, if Valerie can hear me. I was surprised, Val, that you did not talk in depth about email. And if you can give some advice on email, because I've seen you go on a rant once or twice about it. If you can put that information out right now, for those of us that are using email a lot more than we used to, and you might have some solutions to prevent hacking and to prevent not only your email being compromised, but the email of all of us being compromised. So Val, can you go in your email rant?
I'm not sure I'm okay with you calling it a rant. But it's okay. Believe me, it is a sore spot with me. The only solution, in my humble opinion, is having a domain name for your email. In other words, if you are Joseph Smith, you should have a josephsmithlaw.com, or you should have a josephsmithlawfirm.com, or something in that regard, as opposed to Gmail or Yahoo or AOL or any of the other, generic free kind of emails. And the reason why is actually twofold. Number one, when you secure a domain name, you are utilizing the host's security protocols as far as hacking goes. So there is a much less risk of hacking when you're using an actual domain-based email address. And secondly, it projects a professional image for your clients. I know there are plenty of products out there where you can have a domain name and you can route it through Gmail because G Suite offers that. And that's fine. I mean, obviously you have access to Gmail's somewhat high level. It's a different product when you're in the business level of G Suite versus Gmail. But nevertheless, the cost for securing a domain name, and you don't even need to set up a website, although I usually promote that also, but the cost of securing a domain name is so minuscule in comparison to the security benefits it provides. The second half of the security is within your own system. So in other words, on your own Wi-Fi, on your own router, wherever you are, either you're in your office or you're at home, in your home office, you have hopefully your network is password protected and a strong password on your own individual routers. That's the second layer of the security as far as people hacking into your email. And very quickly, I'll add before I shut up. A lot of people don't realize if you're using Comcast as your internet provider, and if you're using a Comcast router, in other words, the one that you rent from Comcast, Comcast by default opens your router up to your general neighborhood, okay? This is how Comcast can provide this quote unquote, blanket coverage for Wi-Fi services, because by default, your router is accessible on a guest level, not on a secure level, but on a guest level by anyone who may be walking through your neighborhood or passing by your office. You have the ability to shut that option off. And I'm shocked at the number of people who don't realize that actually happens. So if anyone wants more information on that, feel free to contact me after the meeting. I don't want to take up any more time. But
Thanks, Lisa. I will tell you, when I've often talked to clients and they tell me the three things that they're impressed about when they talk to me is that I have my own domain, that I am a member of the Supreme Court, and that I that I was prior enlisted. None of them have a daggone thing doing with being a lawyer, and one of them is just paying $100 and one of them is just paying 50. So the three things that clients like are really have nothing to do with the practice of law, but they do give a sense of security to clients. And not only that, but it is also helpful if you don't have a dangerous email account. Then when you get hacked, I also don't get hacked, because it just spreads like this stupid virus. So this is a big thing right now. Another question that we had, and I'm going to go to Erwin on this. Erwin, can you put in a contract that a client will be responsible for paying of billing costs? Say, can you say that the 10% or the 3% or whatever the fee is will come out of their contract? And if that's in the contract, are you then okay ethically?
Well, I prefer you not do that because I think it's a gray area. Certainly, when I'm billing someone, I might say that I'm charging you a processing fee of $15. So I'm sure that it more than covers what I'm billing for PayPal. The problem is that if you're taking in a retainer of a certain amount, then I think that you need to credit them that full amount in the IALTA account. Someone might, who doesn't have any experience practicing law, I don't know, like maybe an attorney in the Office of Bar Counsel perhaps, might look askew at charging what should be your cost of doing business to the client. I certainly think that we all have freedom of contract, but I would have to give you the caveat that you don't want to be Bar Counsel's next test case as to whether that is properly chargeable to the client. If you're going to do it, if you're going to take a credit card that way, then certainly having that approach is preferable to none at all. But if you're going to take plastic for retainers, I strongly, strongly recommend that you do it through a law pay service or another IALTA compliant service, just to avoid any potential concern down the road.
Tom Marinick, he put out something earlier, and they put it as a comment, but I don't want to give Tom credit for it, but it is a very important comment. When we're working remotely, make sure people have your contact information. Obviously now you don't want to be handing out business cards, but make sure you have them. So when you are working remotely, you can give people your contact information, because look, there's never been anything that's ever happened in the past that hasn't changed the way we live on this scale, and this is going to change the way we live forever. We are going to be a more remote practice. When's the last time the judiciary learned to do something and ever undid it? So we have the ability to do things remotely. We're going to do things remotely more in the future. So let's make sure we're prepared for that. Make sure people have our contact information. Now, I don't want 150 people to pipe in, but if there are any questions, and there was one question, and maybe just a group of people coming in and saying yes or no. We didn't talk about technology much today. Now, one of the reasons is because I know nothing about technology. I know how to use Microsoft Word on my computer, and I am the person that Val talks about that has these big programs that do lots of things, and I can't do any of them. So how many people are interested in maybe a technology workshop in the future? Is that something that people are interested in? If so, just put it in the comments, answer yes, and we can maybe make something like that happen in the future. Because if you're interested, we could definitely make it happen. And I'm getting a lot of yeses.
And I'm happy to assist in providing any information on that as well. My time was somewhat limited today, so I didn't get to really expand on a lot of what we can do remotely, but just rest assured there's a tremendous amount of things that you can do on a remote basis, and it does not have to cost you an arm and a leg.
Joe, if I could pipe in, Erwin Kramer here.
Hey, Erwin, you never use that expression when the moderator has already lost a leg. That's just plain mean. But that being said, go ahead, Erwin.
My apologies, Joe.
No, it was a joke.
I understand. There was a question that dealt with remote notaries, and I wanted to share this with you. Can you all see this? These are the requirements of remote notarization. You have to notify the Office of Secretary of State that you intend to do this. but then have to identify the communications technology vendor that would allow you to, in real time, view the signature, compare it for consistency with information and photos presented. And that vendor is important because you need to be able to video record the performance of this signature in the notarial act. So those are some of the things that are required. Now, for a power of attorney in Maryland to be valid, you need 2 witnesses. And under that remote notarization law, one of those witnesses cannot be the notary public who is remote. It has to be 2 live witnesses. Again, even with remote notarization in our era of social distancing, this could be a problem. So it's not a panacea for everyone, but there are some requirements that are necessary here. There is a question among personal injury lawyers as to whether you even need a power of attorney. Can you just get an authorization, not notarize? But I will tell you that there is law out there in the Court of Appeals, some dicta that's very troubling about that entire practice. Candidly, I would say no harm, no foul, and there's no reason not to, but I'm not bar counsel. I won't be prosecuting you. I'll be defending you. So let's just bear that in mind.
One thing I would like to add on that, myself and my partner, we're both military attorneys, and when you start your practice in the military, you do a lot of power of attorneys, and you do a lot of those similar documents. One of the things that we have seen, and I'm speaking for her, but I guarantee you it's true because I know not one person who's done this, is companies are very reluctant to take a general power of attorney. So if you have a client that needs a power of attorney, get a limited power of attorney. Just because a general power of attorney is good enough does not mean that it's going to be accepted. And it doesn't matter if it's right, it matters if it's accepted. So lean your clients to limited power of attorneys, and as we like to tell our clients, you know, if you give a full power of attorney to a girlfriend you met this week, she has a ability to drain your bank account and re-enlist you. So unless you want them to be able to do that, don't give them general, give them limited.
I think we might have time for one more question from the chat line. Is Glenn or Matt still on?
Yeah, I think we both are.
We're here.
Okay, there's a question. Is there any unemployment relief for full-time workers being reduced to part-time work, but not being laid off?
Yes, my understanding is that would be a reduction in work, and you would be entitled to partial workers' comp, and that you can apply just like you normally would if you're reduced from full-time to part-time. Yeah.
We have a resources tab on our website. It's www.askfrost.com, and it fully digests some of the new provisions that have come out related to COVID-19.
And one of the things before we wrap up again, this is Joe Owens, and I'm glad that you said that, Glenn. One of the things that I would like to point out is the speakers that we had today, they didn't come here today and try to sell their businesses. They were all called by me. They were all called by me because I've been on the listserv for about 6 or 7 years now, and I've seen a lot of stuff that they've done, and I've seen a lot of the questions they had, and I know all of their reputations. So don't hesitate to call Valerie if you need help with paralegal assistance. Don't hesitate to call Glenn for business questions. Don't call Erwin because you want to stay as far away from the bar council as humanly possible. But if he walked me through a process one time, and I thank him for that. So these people are there, all there to help you, and certainly Lisa is her job is to make sure we all remain healthy. And if you feel like calling her, she's certainly anxious to help you. So don't think of this as a sales pitch whatsoever, because it wasn't by any of them. They all either didn't have the heart to say no, or were just anxious to help people. And from what I know of them, they were all anxious to help. So A, I want to thank them, and B, I want to encourage you, if you have questions, to reach out to each and one of these individuals or reach out to other people in the bar, because as I've learned over the last couple of years in the Bar Association, if you have questions, you see me on listserv griping about things the Bar Association has done, but I also know that things that the Bar Association is helpful to me as well. So if you have questions, make sure you reach out to people in the bar and the Bar Association whatsoever, because they definitely do want to help you.
Hey, Joe, I'll just leave you with one thought. I know you talked about what to do and what to give the police when you, if you're telling them you're essential and going to work. And just for a little levity, I just carry this with me. My little Ralphie that says I'm essential. So we can make that available to anybody. So that's my little levity to end the situation. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Okay, Joe, do you want to make any closing remarks?
Your microphone's muted, Joe.
Nope, I actually hit mute because I was done talking. Something that people have always wanted to hear me say, I'm done talking.
Okay, well, thank you very much on behalf of the Maryland State Bar Association for everybody taking time out of their day to join us. Thank you to our speakers today for taking the time to prepare and present and to take questions. And we will save the questions that were submitted in chat and share those out when we send out an evaluation. So take care, everybody, and thank you again.